Now, the most important point to make an engaging film, and I don't care what anyone says, I know this from writing short films, writing plays for fringe festivals, all this kind of stuff, the main thing to make an engaging film is your story. Focus on the story. Make it as good and as layered and interesting as possible so that you can make sure that the audience are engaged throughout the whole film. Now, the example I'm going to use for this is my favourite film of all time, Jurassic Park. It is an epic film. If you haven't seen it, I mean, let's face it, who hasn't seen it? It's awesome. So to use this as an example of a great story, I'm going to talk about what process I would go through for my films, which I didn't actually realise until I started analysing how I make my own films. It's a 4-point system to get from A to B, from the beginning of the film to the end of your film. Now, the main thing I would look at first is the character in the story and what do they want, why do we want to follow their story and their journey. Now, Jurassic Park, the main character is Dr. Grant. You could also argue that Dr. Sattler is a main character as well. And we want to follow their journey because if you're going to see Jurassic Park, you already have an interest in dinosaurs, and these guys are paleontologists. They're discovering new species all the time, looking at fossils, that kind of thing. So instantly, before they say a word, you're already interested in what they want to do and what they're saying. And then we find out that they're quite funny as well. You got Dr. Grant making that little comment to the kid about how velociraptors aren't turkeys. They're not giant turkeys at all. They've got these massive claws that can rip your belly open. It's kind of dark and it's kind of funny, so you warm to him instantly and you think, oh okay, well if he likes dinosaurs as well, and he wants to see dinosaurs in real life one day, wouldn't that be cool? So we like him and want to follow his story. Because let's face it, who doesn't like dinosaurs? Well, maybe not her, she's pretty terrified of them, but most of us love dinosaurs. The second point, and it's one that not many people mention, is the inciting incident. Now this again is something I didn't realise I was doing until analysing my films. An inciting incident is something that happens within your film that the characters can't come back from. So in Jurassic Park, of course, it's John Hammond, who's this crazy billionaire guy who decides he wants to create his boyhood dream of a Jurassic Park, a dinosaur park, where the dinosaurs can roam free and you can go through like on a tour and see them in real life. Pretty crazy, and once he gets his scientists to merge the frog DNA with the DNA of dinosaurs, which he's extracted from mosquitoes that were living and eating off dinosaurs, once those dinosaurs are roaming the world, that's the world changed forever. So that's the inciting incident in Jurassic Park. So Dr. Grant's dream seemingly comes true when John Hammond invites him to Jurassic Park so that he can certify that his park is safe after a velociraptor killed one of his guards and his zookeepers, if you like. So now Dr. Grant is going to have his dream come true and see real dinosaurs, and why wouldn't that be exciting unless you're this girl who's terrified pretty much throughout the whole film of anything, and especially dinosaurs. So that brings us to the next stage of the story arc, which is conflict. If you don't have conflict in a film, if your characters aren't fighting against something, then it's a really boring story, quite frankly. If you've got a character going from A to B to C and nothing ever really happens to challenge them, it's dull. So in Jurassic Park, the conflict is clearly when this man, no, not this man, that man makes their really bad selfish error of trying to make himself loads of money and ends up bringing down the whole system and safety barriers of Jurassic Park, releasing the dinosaurs loose into the whole park and environment. So there's your conflict. You've got Dr. Grant, Dr. Sattler, John Hammond's kids out there with him, Ian Malcolm, who, let's face it, wasn't exactly the most helpful person for the most part, going through this Jurassic Park trying to survive against dinosaurs. The conflict doesn't get much bigger than that, so always think about in your story, what is the conflict? What are your characters fighting against that will make us really root for them? And lastly, when you get to the end of your film, what's the resolution? What's changed, if anything's changed, about your character? The chances are that it will have. So for Dr. Grant, he realised at the end of the film that perhaps having a dinosaur park wasn't quite fitting his dream world of what it would be like, and the reality was much more dangerous, and it's something that they shouldn't be getting into. Hence, Jurassic Park 2 and 3, and then you reboot where they kept doing it again and again and again. Also think about what do your characters have to lose, or your main protagonists have to lose in the film. For Dr. Grant, he could lose his life, he could lose his love interest, Dr. Sattler's life, he's got the grandkids, so John Hammond, who he's been paid to come and see his park for's lives as well at stake. So everything is at stake. If there's nothing at stake, again, it's not going to be as interesting and engaging for the audience. Tip number 2 for a more engaging film is casting. Get your casting as bang on as possible. If you're low budget like me, then look to actor friends who can play those roles. If you don't have friends and people around you who are actors, make sure that the people who maybe you're getting to step in to help you out to play the roles aren't having challenging roles. So give them a role where there's no words even. Just have them travelling from A to B, whatever the story is with the conflict and all the stuff we've talked about before. But just make sure that you're not going to put them in a situation where they have to really do some challenging acting, because it's going to really show and distract from your story and it won't be as engaging. You can create a really good story where you don't even see the actor's face if the world that they're in and the story you created is interesting enough. Also, if you get your casting bang on, it can make a film amazing. With Plant Lady, my short film, it's an award-winning short film now. Entered into loads of festivals as well. Rachel, who plays the main character in it, I knew she loved plants. I knew she had loads of plants, and it was an interest of hers, and she's an actress, so I managed to get the whole package in one, and that really made the film stand out and made it what it is, because the casting was spot on and it really took the film to another level, whereas if I got the casting wrong, it just wouldn't really have taken off. Tip number 3 is plan to your budget. So when you're writing a film, it's great to be ambitious, and some people do say, well, write your film and think about the budget afterwards, but the fact is, not all of us are going to have Jurassic Park kind of money to spend on our film. So think about what's available to you, what locations you have, what actors you have, that kind of thing, and really write a story that's going to suit what's available to you as well. You can still have that dream film script that you're writing, but for the moment you can just work on honing in your skills and that kind of thing. For my latest short, Lucky the Dog, I made sure that I just worked with what I had, because we're in a kind of lockdown, half lockdown situation. I knew I wouldn't be able to do too much, so I had my actor Andre in a flat, and then the next scene was in garages with myself as well. So even though it was low budget, it didn't matter because the story suited it. So make sure when you're looking for locations as well, plan to your budget, make the story match that as well, and it will be a really engaging film. As long as that story is on point, people aren't going to care that it's low budget. We've all seen low budget films where we've been amazed by them and we remember them because of the story and the characters. Tip number 4 is sound. Get on top of your sound. If the sound isn't great, it's really going to distract from the film. You won't be able to engage with it and you'll switch it off straight away. People can forgive an image that isn't quite amazing, but if the sound is really bad or slightly off, it's going to be annoying to the ears and you won't be able to engage with it long term, and you'll switch off pretty quickly from that film. So make sure things like dialogue are really nice and clean. If you're in an area where it's quite loud perhaps, or there's 1 or 2 words that get missed because of things going past, like a plane or whatever, make sure you do a bit of ADR afterwards and record them saying those lines nice and clean so you can lay it over and you can get them nice and on point for your audience to hear and keep them engaged in the story. Foley sounds are really important as well, so doors opening, doors locking, you know, a gun going that kind of stuff. What gun does? I don't know. The little details are really important in sound because it keeps the audience engaged and in the world of the actor and the story that you're telling. Without those sounds, everything kind of feels a little bit flat and uninteresting. Ambient sounds as well are really important to your film, so make sure when you're on location you get a good minute or so of clean sound there with no dialogue or anything, so you can lay that underneath all the words, so when there's a moment of quietness, you still have that real world sound in the background to make you feel like you're in a real location and that the world you're living in is bringing the audience into it as well. Tip number 5, kill your darlings. No, don't kill your partners, kill your darlings. By that I mean scenes or lines or moments in your films that don't really feel necessary once you got them back and you're in post-production editing. If there's a part of a scene that you think, oh actually it doesn't really need to be there, it doesn't make sense to the story, or it doesn't really take the story forward, get rid of it. It'll make the film a lot snappier and it'll keep the audience engaged because you're moving from important moment to important line to important moment. Whereas if you have some moments where you're like, why did they say that? It just distracts you from the film. So make sure that you kill your darlings. Anything that's not necessary to the story, like someone, you know, I saw a film where someone was doing a tracking shot of someone walking along for about a minute or 2. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And it was so boring. And it just dragged the whole film out. And I just couldn't understand why they did it. And if they just cut it to about 10 seconds instead of a minute, we would have got the point. The next tip for a more engaging story is show, don't tell. So if you've got a part of a story that really reveals something of a character, you don't need the character to say that thing themselves, you can just show it. So for example, in Plant Lady, my short film, you don't need to be told that she's crazy about plants because the whole world, her whole living room, her whole space is covered in plants, and you can see by her reactions to things that she loves plants and how she cares for them. I didn't have her say, oh God, I love plants so much. It would just be stupid and weird. Maybe some people say that in real life, I don't know. But in a film, it doesn't make sense because we can see those things. Don't tell people what you can see and what you can show. Tip number 7 is lighting. Lighting is so important to telling your story and creating an engaging story. This is something that I really struggle with, and even until recently, I'm only just getting to grips with it. If you haven't seen my video on lighting for your films, check it out now. I'll put a link up here or up here, somewhere there. It's super important to telling your story. Is it a dark space? Is it a light space? Is the light you're producing want to give a sense of hope? Is it somewhere that's going to feel a bit like despair? Make sure that your lighting is telling a story, and the way you're shaping it tells a story too. Is it daytime when there's perhaps a chance of something great happening? Is it nighttime where it feels a bit darker and a bit more sinister? Lighting is so important. Learn your lighting, go on YouTube, watch my video, do whatever you need to do to pick up the tips on how to create a really great scene with lighting, because that will engage the audience as well. Next up is study cinematography. The way you frame shots, the way things look, are so important to telling your story, and you can tell the audience things about a character or a location without saying anything. Again, the show don't tell kind of thing with your framing, with your composition in cinematography. So study the heck out of it. The books I'm reading at the moment are really interesting for this, by Christopher Kenworthy. It's the Master Shots 2nd edition, and I'm making my way through Master Shots Volume 2. Essentially, it gives you all types of shots, for all types of scenarios, and it shows you how to make them and what they do and how they affect the story and what they tell the audience. So study cinematography. It will really, really improve the engaging feeling of your film, and you can bring the audience in with these really creative angles and composition as well. The penultimate tip for making a more engaging film is study your favourite films. So obviously mine's Jurassic Park, I've got others as well, but what's your favourite film that really sat with you from the moment you watched it? Maybe you watched it 10 times now, and it's just your favourite go-to film. What is it about it? Does it make you feel hopeful? Does it make you feel a bit scared? Is it horror films that makes you really, love what you do? Look at those films that are your favourites. Look at the framing, the composition, the lighting, the sound in your own way from those inspirations. And lastly, the big tip that I don't think many people give at all, and if you have stuck with me to this point, thank you very much, is tell the story only you can tell. By that I mean, this is a really inspirational thing that I learned from a guy called Ricky Beadle-Blair, who is a British writer, activist, mentor, everything. He really said to me when I was writing a script, okay, this is a charming script, it's a good script, but it's not really challenging. What's the story only you can tell? And so the story I took to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which did really well, is called 1-to-1 This Sex is Real. It is a play about love, sex and relationships in the 21st century with social media and all the pressures that it brings. So think about the stories that only you can tell. Maybe it's something you've experienced, maybe something you've seen when you're walking to work or something and it just sat with you. Maybe it kind of just made you feel quite bad for someone. You want to explore why they're in that situation. Just think about the story only you can tell, and by being that specific, it'll actually have more of a universal feel and engagement with people than if you try to just copy something that's already been done. You can always be inspired by other people's films, obviously, but do it in your own way and put your own flavour on it in the way only you can do. Because at the end of the day, what's unique about you is the thing that will sell your films. If you stuck with me to this point, guys, thank you so much for watching. I know it's a bit of an odd video for my channel. It's more of a talking head segment. I hope it's really helped you out with your films. Let me know if you got any tips as well in the comment section below and what you found helpful from this too. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.